Well, look, it's absolutely my delight to welcome Alexandra to our community. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Michael Diamond. I'm the academic director of the Integrated Marketing and Communications Department here at NYU's SPS School of Professional Studies, and I'm also a clinical assistant professor of marketing in the Division of Programs of Business. And it is absolutely my delight both to encourage and support a wonderful faculty like George, his class on finance for marketing decisions, along with the IMA, the Integrated Marketing Association, which is the student-run association represented here by their leader, by their president, Ria. But it's just a lovely opportunity to bring everybody together. This is very much the definition of blended. This is how education happens, both in the modern world of technology, but more specifically, at a place like the School of Professional Studies, which is very much about an applied professional education, bringing leaders from the working community into our academic community and benefiting, hopefully, all of us from that exchange. Anyway, so without further ado, I'll pass it back to George, and I look forward very much to the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. And look, as you see, we are a bit wearing a mask today to follow the rules.
Yeah.
We have a video without a mask, so you'll be able to see us. So first, thanks again for those of you joining online. My name is George Benaroya. During the day, I work as a CFO. I started my career at Procter & Gamble, Tetra Pak, Beiersdorf, and now I work in private equity. Now, once per week, I get to do something I love, and that is to teach this class. Julia, will you show us what the students do? So what we do is, on the first session, the students pick a company, any company they like. This semester, they chose Estée Lauder. And then they learn about finance by looking at the different decisions that a company will make in finance. Next. So the session 2 is about headcount. How many people are we going to hire next year? And then next. We see that in some parts of the world, like Europe, severance is regulated by law. But in the US, it's not. So if we have to lay off 26 of our colleagues in the marketing department on a global basis, what can we learn from other countries? The next session.
And how, George, just so I'm clear, how are you getting these numbers? Are these numbers that you all are coming up with through your own independent analysis?
Right. So what we do is we use all these databases with detailed analysis to try to basically estimate the marketing headcount for different companies, right? Because Estée Lauder, as an example, wouldn't disclose it. And then based on these ratios, we spread it out by department. And then basically what they are trying to do, the students, is to have a reason for the recommendation. So the numbers
right.
are not the main thing, but rather is why is it that we're going to increase by 14 the headcount of digital media?
Right. And is this for the Estée Lauder companies, or is this for the Estée Lauder brand?
For the companies.
Okay.
Then the next
Great.
Yeah, thanks. The next session we look into pricing. So if we go to the next slide. So we say, okay, if we delay a price increase from January to March, what will be the impact in billion dollars? In the 9th class, they picked P&G, so now you see the slide for P&G. Then next, we look at the—
And are you, can you just go back to that other slide?
Yeah.
When you look at the proposed price increases, what's interesting to me here is they seem like they're global price changes as opposed to by market.
Right, and so the way we do it is the way that we will do it in one of these global companies, right? So we will aggregate the local recommendations from different regions. So we will say, for example, in Latin America is -2%, but in Europe is +10%. And then we will consolidate all those numbers. But the different strategies are done on a by region basis. And then
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Now, to give you an example for the US, when we go into pricing, so we look at one square cream, which sells for $20, and we say the salaries in New York City are 56% higher than in El Paso, Texas. And we debate whether we should have a local, national, or global price list. And then we keep going and going for each one of the different drivers until we get to the P&L on the next slide. This will be a summary for the last 3 years, and then we will go into the strategic plan for the future of the next 3 years. Now, the other thing that sorry, go ahead.
I don't see margin.
So what we are using is gross profit instead as a proxy.
Okay. Okay.
So you will see on the left-hand side, the dollar amount, this is in $1 billion, and then the percentage of net sales right next to the dollar amount.
Okay.
And yeah, we do look into the fact that, for example, companies like Estée Lauder will have a gross margin of, say, 70% or so, and in other
right,
it will be lower.
Right. And we are always trying to increase that profit margin.
Yeah, and we look into all these drivers to achieve that. And then the other thing that we do after we have done all this, although since I have you and you seem willing to have more of a dialogue, so the toughest one for us was the price increase, right? When we were doing that, the students from Estée Lauder will pretend that they were sending a communication to real consumers and real customers and see what the reaction is. And then we will do a scenario where we will pretend that a customer will tell one of these companies that they will lose their ability to be on the shelves because a competitor had chosen not to increase prices the next year. And so then they do something to deal with that issue.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, because for us, there are so many things that go into the determination about pricing. It's the competitive landscape. That's certainly something that we look closely at, but it's also other things that you might not think about. So I see that we've got several students from China in the class, which is wonderful. And China is such an important market for us. And, the way China operates is very different than any other part of the world. So we look at everything from socioeconomic changes to consumer preferences to, our current relationship with the government. And so it's a quite of an involved calculation. And the calculation, I think, is really important to stress is, yes, it is certainly quantitative. It's certainly numerical. It's very data driven, but the ultimate decision for us, at least, there is a huge overlay of the qualitative side. And so we work very, very closely with our people in the regions. And in this case, certainly APAC and China, to really just sort of get a feel of what is going to work in that market. So, for us, it really is the art and the science.
Yes, absolutely. Because, the drivers will vary, right, from some markets or at least regions of the world. But since you brought it up, the other thing that we do is we test and we ask, this group of students, which are 40 in total, why did they buy one of these brands, right? So the differences are Estée Lauder, P&G, Disney, Apple, and Nike. And what is remarkable is the difference that we see on the data about, for example, for a P&G product, it's important to have it on the shelf. And for products
Right.
like Estée Lauder or Nike, the influence of influencers is much greater, and you see it on the data. So it's really interesting.
Well, I think the other thing though to think about in that decision is the brand equity, right? So, you know, Apple is Apple. And almost guaranteed anything comes out of Apple is going to be technologically advanced. It's going to be easy to use. It's going to be beautiful. And so we all have a great track record with an Apple knowing that. And I think for me, the difference between an Apple and a Nike is Nike also has that, but there is a fashion element to Nike and a, you know, you're seeing all the designer sneakers, for example, you're seeing, you know, other brands really raise their game. So it's funny, I would have just me personally, and I do think one thing that we've got to think about here is you always want to have data. You always want to have consumer insight, but you also have to look at yourself and your own behavior and the people you know around you to say, you know, if my, I mean, actually it happened last week where my iPhone went into a big tub of water and it, you know, maybe it's dried out by now. I don't believe it is, but I'm not saying, oh, well, okay, my phone broke, so I'm going to now get a Samsung. There is no way. My loyalty to my iPhone is basically unshakable.
Yeah, that is correct. That would be a great example of brand equity, right? And so we do all this in terms of looking at numbers and reasons and so on. And one of the things that we promote is different views, right? So there are no right numbers. The idea is to look at the pros and cons for each company. And then the other thing we do, which is where you come into the picture, if you go to the next slide, is to invite 2 senior executives each semester to tell us in real life, when you're at the office, how do you make all these decisions? And so today, we have Mrs. Trower, who is the Executive Vice President, Global Communications at the Estée Lauder Company. In that role, she leads all the brands, corporate, social, philanthropic, and crisis communications. And she's also an executive, a member of the executive team at Estée Lauder. For those of you who don't know, Estée Lauder has sales in excess of $40 billion. And they also have brands like Bobbi Brown and Clinique and so on. Now, the other thing that is interesting is that Mrs. Trower is also a member of the board of the Estée Lauder Foundation, committed to supporting girls and women's education. And Julia, if you would. So this is more of a personal note that I would like to add, and that is that when I spoke to Mrs. Trower, what I found was that she was engaging, genuine, and also committed to education. And it's very rare that you will find a senior leader with all those 3 qualities. So on behalf of all of us in the class, thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you. George, I think I think they're having trouble hearing you. I'm seeing that come up on the chat. So Michael, maybe you can help us with that.
So here's what I want to ask. Julia can intervene technologically, but if someone who's on the panel can, other than Gerardo, who made a comment, let us know if you can hear George okay. As panelists, we can all hear him, but anyone else in the attendees, if you could, okay. So okay. I'm seeing others who say they can hear George well. So Gerardo, we'll try and work with you offline, but it sounds like others can hear okay. So I keep going, George. I think we're good.
All right, good. So what we'll do is we'll have the students, ask you questions directly. And the first question will be from Rebecca. Nikki, let me see if I can change this. It is good. And Julia, maybe we can do the spotlight. Sorry.
Hi, Ms. Trower. My name is Rebecca.
Hello. Please, can I just ask you to please call me Alex?
Okay, yeah, of course.
Thank you. It makes me feel younger.
You can call me Nikki then.
Great.
My questions are as follows. As a business leader, what did you learn from COVID, and will the pandemic have a long-term effect on all levels of communication throughout Estée Lauder? Thank you.
So first, I just want to thank George so much for inviting me to participate in this great class. And you are very lucky to have a professor like George who cares so much about all of you and is bringing you such an incredibly interesting hybrid of ways to learn about this world. And when George speaks of education and that being important to me, it absolutely is, especially bringing up young women and girls, because I think we still operate as a disadvantage. And honestly, the great benefit of being able to be involved in helping to teach is I learned so much from those around me. And my team, I know from Estée Lauder, is on the phone, on the line as well. And I'm so lucky to be able to work with an incredible group of professionals. And I know I'm going to learn a lot today from you all. So thank you for that. On COVID, what I would say about that is our team is always, we've got to change direction sometimes multiple times a day, right? Because we're responding to what's going on in the world around us, right? So my morning never looks like my afternoon ever, 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 unless I'm in a leadership team meeting, and then it's a lot of listening and participation for many hours. But I think what COVID really did for our team is that it enabled us to really demonstrate and showcase how incredibly strong we are at pivoting and being agile and being able to respond to the current situation at hand. So I would say a couple things. One is the workload of our team has increased probably by, I would say, 65 to 75%. Our team is not just executing communications. In fact, I wouldn't have joined the company if that's what we were tasked with. We have a seat at the table, and we are business partners who happen to do communications and corporate affairs. And so we are, we're at, partnering with the leaders to determine, what is our strategy? What is our communication strategy? How are we going to create a medical advisory board? The other piece that someone just reminded me of is it really, really reinforced the company's need for transparent and frequent and interesting communications. I mean, I have to tell you, there are times when I'm on calls and someone will say, oh, we need more communications to combat COVID fatigue. And I thought, well, actually, part of the problem that is creating COVID fatigue is for everybody sending out emails all day long, right? You don't want to open up 10 more emails or 20 more emails, right? So we got to be really creative with some of the things that we've been doing to engage our employees, and that's been great. I would also say that our team has really, really delivered. And that has been incredibly gratifying. So everything from COVID to Black Lives Matter to gender equity those are work streams that we are playing a critical part in driving the programs that we do as a company to ensure that we are meeting our aspirational goals of having the right values and engagement and care for our employees. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So Caroline is next. Caroline.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Caroline. Nice
Hi.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, it's virtually, but nice to meet you. So my question is, a company establishing trust with its customers is paramount. In what ways can a company enhance that trust in the digital space? Thank you.
Well, you know, I have to tell you, I am a complete lover of social media and digital communications. I think it is a great source of consumer insight. So you can see in very, very real time how people are feeling about things. We care a tremendous amount about what our consumers are feeling and what they're thinking about our company and our products and our actions, importantly. And so, you know, just to use social media, for example, we can, I'll actually tell you a funny story that I don't think I've shared publicly before, but I don't think it'll get me in trouble. Years ago, our Clinique brand, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, had an improvement in the formulation for one of its creams, and it's the, how come I can't remember what it's called, you guys? It's the yellow one. Anyway, it's a very cool name, and I just, for some reason, it's slipping my mind at the minute. DDML, dramatically different moisturizing lotion. And it was sort of a you know, something that, you know, many of us started our, you know, skincare lives using DDML. And it was just as social media was really starting. And we worked so closely with the brand and on all the communications and all of the, you know, the Q&As. And we had some trepidation that people who loved this product were going to be, you know, it's hard sometimes, right? People don't want their favorite thing to change. And we did market research out the wazoo. And I remember that. And we talked about with the brand's leadership, we may see some people who don't love this. And we've got to be okay with that, right? We made a decision. We made a huge investment. Not everyone's going to like everything. And we've got to just hold hands if there are some people, you know, who are unhappy. Well, I remember getting a call the morning that it launched from someone very wonderful and senior in the brand who said, we have 6 consumers who have posted and have said that they don't like this as much as the original formula. And I said, that's great that we are hearing from our consumers. And we had a plan that any consumer who wasn't, you know, fully happy, we would take them offline, have a conversation with them, encourage them to, you know, give it more of a try, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very, very high touch. And I had to say to this very senior person, hang on, how many units of DDML do we sell in a year, in a month, in a day? And you guys, it is millions, tens of millions in a year. So I'm not a mathematician, but even I could see that that percentage of negative comments was actually fantastic. But the fact that we prepared for that launch, that we knew there were going to be people understandably who weren't going to love it, and that we wanted to deliver a very high touch experience to those consumers. And so that was a really important way that we reinforce our trust with our consumers. A lot of companies would have just ignored them, right? They would have been like, oh yeah, they're always going to be complainers. We're just going to focus on the people who love us. We actually care a lot about the people who love us, care a huge amount about the people who don't love us, because that's how we learn. So summarizing, you know, a lot of transparent communication in your brand voice, right? So our Clinique voice is going to be different from our MAC voice, right? Or our Bobbi Brown voice, or our Joe Malone voice. And so it's about authenticity and about transparency. And you can't always please everyone, and you just have to be okay with that. So that's really how, in everything we do, we try to engage with our consumers, our employees, and all of our stakeholders.
Thanks very much. Michelle, would you like to go next?
Hi, Alex. How are you? I'm Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
My question is, how has the Estée Lauder Companies tailored their board of directors in order to acquire those who can provide insights and best understand the product in comparison to the board of directors at other companies? Thank you.
Well, I can't really comment on boards of directors at other companies, but it's a great question and it's a really important one. And I would just take you back and remind you that we have not been a public company throughout our whole existence. We became a public company, I believe, in 1995. And I know some of you probably weren't even born in 1995. For me, that is not so long ago. And I think one of the things that Leonard Lauder, our chairman emeritus, who is Estée Lauder's son, and William Lauder, who is our executive chairman, really looked at was ensuring that we had experts who were outside of beauty, right? So anyone really smart with a passion for beauty can learn beauty, like anything, right? But we wanted to have people with that came from different backgrounds, that had strengths in areas that we didn't necessarily have. I'll give you an example of that is Melanie Hobson. And Melanie Hobson is really one of the leading business women in the world. She was and still is at Ariel Capital Management. She is African American, and she is very direct in conveying her ideas and sentiment. We really needed that, right? We needed to have someone say, and she did, honestly, she did. And we were, I believe, a little bit slower to adapt than I think we would have liked. But basically saying, what's the deal with all these, very attractive white girls in all your ads? Like, that's not where, you say you're for a prestige brand for, set of brands for all consumers, you're missing a big part of the demographic. And, that was actually really important for us to hear and understand. And you'll see that our advertising and our communication have really evolved. And so, we had people from entertainment with Dick Parsons, who was head of Time Warner at the time. We had Barry Sternlicht, who is head of Starwood Group, the hotel. So he had great understanding of operating a global business. Charlene Barshevsky, who is a senior member. I think she was a commissioner of trade. So just really great different people who had different expertise. When we look at our most recent appointees, we have two incredibly fabulous and strong women who are aligned with our priorities in online, omnichannel, and tech, as well as being quite a bit younger than the average age of our current, of the board overall. One is Jennifer Hyman, who created and runs Rent the Runway. And the other is Jennifer Tejada, who is who is the CEO and founder of PagerDuty, a company that went public recently. And so, we're very focused on getting diversity and bringing in skills that are outside of beauty. So that we can have the most diverse and inclusive board that can give us the very best guidance and actually hold us accountable, which is really important.
Well, thanks for that. Leila, would you like to go next?
Hi, Alex. I'm Leila.
Hey.
What do you think will be the future of the merger between the digital and physical world?
It's so interesting that you asked that question. When I joined the company 13 years ago, everyone was in a big fuss about what was going to happen to magazines, right? No, everything's going digital. There's not going to be any more magazines. No one's ever going to read a magazine again. Da, 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 da. Well, guess what? I have a stack of magazines by my bedside table that's probably an OSHA hazard because it's so high. I'm online all the time. I think that one complements the other. I love holding a magazine in my hand. We know that magazines are very important for image building. We also know that, media relations, which on my team is run by an incredible woman called Jill Marvin. It's really important that we're talking to the business journalists that cover us, the trade journalists that cover us, the people who are making a decision about whether or not they should buy our stock. What's great about social is that, we can test and learn all the time. We can do it really inexpensively. We actually just have coming out with a great new platform that our internal communication platform called My ELC. This version is called My ELC Beta. And we say that with a huge amount of pride, because why would you create something and then roll it out to 77,000 plus employees around the world, have it locked and loaded, and then not know if people are going to like it or the functionality is really good? So we are testing and learning all the time, which I think is really important. The other piece is you get this amazing opportunity to engage with your consumers online, right? You've got tremendous storytelling opportunities. You've got tremendous ways to interact. You've got tremendous ways to demonstrate and, create a real bond with your consumers. So I think that, digital communications is going to continue to be super, super important. They're really almost like television or entertainment. They're ways for us to engage with our consumers in a way that's brand building and that's incredible. And we really view our sites as opportunities for consumers to interact with us and then buy online. So we even look at, for example, a Mac.com or a Lauder.com or a Lemaire.com. We really look at those sites as equity builders that we own. So the content has to be beautiful. It has to be on brand. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be engaging. And our online sales are just incredible. We had Singles Day yesterday in China, and we did very, very well. And then the combination of the social and the print is, I think, in large part, helping to drive that.
So great. Look, we had questions that we had to pick, right? But one of the students was asking about Singles Day. So the first section was more about you as a business leader. The second segment is more as a communications expert. Now, this question has come in different manners, and it probably will help billions with a B of people. And the question is, for those of us who are introverts, shy, our first language is not English, or are from less outspoken parts of the world, any tips on how to communicate better? And this one's coming from a very senior person, a VP at a Fortune 500 company. And he says, do we have any chance to make it to the C-suite at a global company?
Absolutely. And I want to be really clear. When we talk about diversity, we also mean diversity of styles. We also mean diversity of how people process information and how they communicate it. I am actually an extroverted. I would be so happy if I never had to go out at night or, leave my family and friends and go and talk to people at a party, for example. That is just, I know no one really believes that, but it is true. I think, it's funny that I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was talking to my mom about this as I was preparing for this great opportunity to be with you all today. And my mom's a psychoanalyst, and she actually was a headmistress before that and a university professor before that. And she said, I think one of the things that's so important is it's not about you, the person, right? It's really about what is the job that you have and what is expected from you to be successful and to help drive your company. So it doesn't matter if you're shouting, it doesn't matter if you're whispering. Your job is to convey the information and your insights and your experience. And there is not a one size fits all. Absolutely. And our company is very, very international. And our CEO is Italian. English is not his first, second, or third language. So I think that that's really important. And I think the other thing is to really remember you are sitting in that room or around that conference table or in that board meeting for a reason. You have expertise that others probably don't have. You have a point of view that may be different from other people. It is so important to hear everyone's voice. And so, don't let, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, sort of form how you're perceived, right? You own your own reputation. And I have plenty of people who are very shy and very quiet. And I know when they come to me or when they speak in a meeting, it is really, really important to hear them because they've got a point of view or information that can be incredibly valuable.
Thank you very much. I know that, many people will appreciate that. The other question is, how has the growth of digital changed the job description for those working in communications?
Oh my God. It is like it's changed it. Think of the example of horse and buggy to supersonic airplanes. So the fundamentals of transportation are still the same, but digital has changed everything. And what has been so fun about digital and a little painful too, is that, you guys all grew up being digital natives. That is your first language. I still have to have a conversation with my husband about, he says, I don't understand why you don't text me, why you text me instead of calling me. And I'll say, well, I was in a meeting. I wasn't going to step out of the meeting to remind you to, pick the dog up from the vet. And so I think digital, what's so great about it is evolving all the time. We're learning all the time. We are exploring and testing all the time. And one of the things that I do want to make sure that I'm clear about that, a lot of people in communications in particular will say, I'm not good at math. And it took me a long time to realize that numbers were just a different way of telling a story, right? The same way letters are, right? Letters are made into words, or made into sentences, or made into paragraphs. So are numbers. And I think that one of the things that's so important in terms of the skills that we're looking at, here's the great thing about digital. Digital skews towards younger people, just by definition. And that doesn't mean somebody who's, older isn't great at digital. It just means you guys grew up in this environment where it is your first language. And so one of the things that we really look for at Estée Lauder, and particularly on our teams, are, do we have the right talent? Do we have the right talent to be the best in social and digital? And what do we need? So we need people who understand the medium. That they can say, oh, no, you don't want that on Instagram. That's got to go on Snapchat. And here's why. And they don't have to spend 2 hours explaining it to me. We are also more and more data driven, which is so fabulous because the data gives you insights and direction and lets you know, or, pretty effectively what people want to hear and what is not resonating. And so, that is where digital is just this incredibly valuable place for people to test and learn. So we really need people who are great with data, who are great with analytics. And that doesn't mean somebody has to have a PhD in statistics. It just means that you can speak fluently about data and what that data is telling you. The other thing that, I would say that is really, really important to us at the company is, and especially in my group, I assume anyone who comes and works for us is really, really smart and that they've got great experience and they can deliver, whether it's in digital, whether it's in all different forms of communications. What is really, really important, no matter what area you are expert in, is how you do what you do. And we work together 24/7 in many cases, too often these days, I have to say. And we are shoulder to shoulder solving problems. And how you work together as a team and how you collaborate with your teammates and how you support each other and how you are constructively working together to deliver the best result is, frankly, the most important piece to me. And I think as a result of that culture and our team, we are incredibly high performing. And that's, and I am, work just as closely with very junior people who often know a lot more than I do about things in the digital landscape, as I do with my SVPs and VPs. So if you take anything away from this conversation, your how is really, really important.
That's very good. Andrea, would you like first?
Hi, Alex. My name is Andrea. It's very nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
My question is, how are you able to adapt to the constant evolution of digital communications and ultimately deliver effective brand communications? Thank you.
Sure. So for brand communications, you really, really have to know who your brand is, what your brand stands for, what your brand voice is, and what's your brand's positioning, and who are your brand's consumers. So you have to understand your brand as well as you would understand your future partner, right? Like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? You really, and I would say understanding the bad and the ugly is maybe even more important than understanding all the great things about your brand, because if you don't understand the bad and the ugly, then you're gonna get yourself into a pickle, I think, sometimes. So you've really got to first understand that. And once you understand that, that gives you the right platform to communicate well in any medium, right? And so again, I would think of digital as this incredible opportunity to have a conversation with your consumers, to help them fall in love with you, to answer their questions, to feel like they really know you through that medium. And that is about authenticity. It's about responding quickly. It's about understanding them. And if you screw up, moving quickly to fix the problem and owning it. And owning it though, and we've learned this actually the very hard way. Years ago, we had issue with with our MAC brand, which is just one of our crown jewels. I mean, so cool and so fabulous. And they've been on the cutting edge of, you know, all sorts of incredible social issues like AIDS and HIV. And they're just, you know, really a special brand, the makeup artist brand, right? The most inclusive brand on the planet. And we had an issue of our own creating, and that's why you want to not be on the tail end of things, but you want to be sitting in the room as things are being decided so you don't have to play cleanup. But we made the mistake of responding to a difficult situation in a corporate voice. Now, like now I think, what? Why would we do that, right? And it was a fabulous woman on my team, Anna Klein, who was like, no, we cannot respond in a corporate voice. The last thing a MAC makeup artist or a MAC consumer wants to hear is corporate speak. And, you know, so that is the quickest way to lose love and trust. And so you've really got to speak to your consumers in your brand voice. And when you make a mistake, you have to own it. You have to express appreciation and for understanding about it. And then you have to fix it. And you've got to fix it in a really authentic way. I'm going to just tell you here and now, marketing and communications cannot solve all your problems. And we say that, and we have to do it a lot less now. But, you know, we will say, well, actually, what are we doing about this? What is our plan to mitigate it? What's our plan to make sure it never happens again? How are we going to educate people better in our own company? How are we going to change our processes? And, you know, that's where I feel so lucky to be at Estee Lauder, because people expect us and appreciate, for the most part, and need us to tell them when, you know, their brilliant ideas of just communicating more are going to solve everything, because all that does is erode credibility if you don't have actions to address it.
Thanks for that. Hermione has a question related to the introduction that you were making. Go ahead.
Hi, Alexandra. I'm Hermione.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And my question
Oh,
is,
good.
Is there a difference in the communication strategy among brands or regions of the world?
You said it. Yes, absolutely. I mean, just think about, and I know you guys never have been in a department store in your whole life, but think about when you're going to Sephora online, right? And you see our brands. And so, you know, let's use MAC versus Jo Malone. Those brands have their own point of view, their own voice, their own expression, their own look and feel, their own colors, their own branding. And so that is what is so incredible about this company. Mrs. Estee Lauder, and then Leonard Lauder, and then William Lauder, and Fabrizio Freda, and our other tremendous leaders have, each brand is as different as the person is sitting next to you right now in your classroom. You know, you're all people, you're all smart, you're all interested, but you're very different, each of you. And, you know, how you might dress or how you might speak or how you might approach things is going to be very different depending on where you are in the world. And so it's really, really important to think of your brands and their local relevance. And so the way you might speak to a consumer in Mexico could be very, very different from how you speak to and interact with a consumer in Canada or Korea. And so it's really important that you understand your brand so well, and that you also really understand the environment in which you are operating. And I think that the challenge sometimes is to know, what are the things that I absolutely positively cannot change about our brand, right? So think about yourselves. You can't change how tall you are. You can't change, you know, where you're from. You can't change where you went to school, but you can behave differently, you know, in different circumstances and in different parts of the world. You never want to give up those fundamental things that make your brand your brand. And you also need to have a very deep understanding in the environment in which you're operating. So you keep those sacred things sacred, and those things where you've got a little more flexibility, you are able to sort of tailor that to your consumer wherever he or she is sitting, or stakeholder, because it's also government agencies, it's shareholders, it's influencers, it's activists, it's NGOs, it's your own employees. So that's a very important concept, the way we sort of think about things.
So the last block is 3 personal questions, and Rachel, would you like to go first?
Yes, I can go first. Hi. Thank you
Hi.
for being here today. My question is, like, as a woman, how can women make a difference by serving as board members in nonprofit organizations and startups?
So, you know, what I would say is follow your passion. I started out really serving on the alumni board of my small women's university in Virginia. And I still love my college, and had an amazing experience there. It was not always rosy, but, you know, growing is often hard and painful. But that's the place where, you know, you're supposed to do all that. And so I joined the alumni board, and honestly, I will tell you, we spent way too much time, and you're going to find this hopefully amusing, on the bookstore. And I thought, if I have to sit in one more meeting talking about the bookstore, I am going to just like have to skip the next series of meetings. And I talked to the president and I said, you know, I love this institution so much. I am not a tradesperson. I don't know about bookstores, and I really honestly don't care about bookstores. And I would like to be helping you with more strategic thinking, and, you know, about our brand and how we attract and retain great students, and how we are looking ahead and understanding, you know, changing demographics, et cetera, et cetera. So I was lucky enough to be then asked to join the board. And I've got to tell you something. When you are following your passion and you are doing something you love, you are going to add so much value, and you're going to learn so much, and you're going to make incredible relationships. So I'll tell you actually something funny on that. One of my very, very dear friends, who I sit on the Hollins University board, and I'm now board chair, called me and said, this is a year ago, you know, I really, I want to talk about something when I come to New York, and it's not Hollins related. And usually what that means is, can you get my daughter, niece, friend, goddaughter, blah, 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 an internship? Could be a boy too. Can you get somebody I care about who's younger an internship? Can you get me free La Mer? And can I please get, you know, can I get a pass to the company store so I can buy stuff more less expensively? So, you know, I was all ready to do that. And we sat down and had a lovely lunch. And she said, you know, I'm on the board of the Capital Group and their mutual funds, and we're looking for a new board member, and we think you'd be great. Well, I have to tell you something. I almost fell out of my chair. And I had been in asset management for 20 years. And honestly, I always felt like the person in the room that, you know, didn't quite understand how to read algorithmic output. And I, you know, and if I had never been on the Hollins board, I never would have built a relationship with this person. She could see where and how I added value. And I was fortunate enough to join the American Funds Mutual Funds Board of the 4th largest asset management company in the world. So do your thing. and do it when you're young and have energy, and follow your passion, and that can lead to amazing things.
Let me just do a quick process check. Is it okay if we take 2 or 3 more minutes if we run out of time?
Of course.
Okay, thanks. So this question is about that letter that was published on the letter to your daughter. And there you give several recommendations. And one of those that we liked was the idea of bring others up with you. Will you tell us more about it?
Sure. I mean, I'll start by saying, so my daughter's 27 and she is a charter school teacher. And that letter that I shared with you is actually the second version of the letter, because when I shared the first version with her, she said, "Mom, this is really good, but what was the assignment?" And I sort of, blundered her, and she said, "I don't think you're answering the assignment." So I said, "Do you think I need to start again?" And she said, I do. So anyway, the second letter is the letter you have. I thought the first one was pretty good, but clearly she was not feeling that same way. Anyway, so bringing others up with you. It's the most important thing to me. It's the thing I love the most. It's the thing that brings me the most pleasure and happiness, and where I learn the most. Not one of us got to where we are all by ourselves. Not one of us. Even if we've had difficult challenges and life circumstances, we have always had people around us who have helped us. And I think it is absolutely paramount that we pay that back. And so I think about, when I moved to New York, it was much easier to find an apartment. I mean, much easier to find a job than find an apartment. And I remember getting in touch with, friends of friends, friends of my parents' friends, people that I knew who had gone to Holland's, and I just cold called them basically. And what I can tell you is people love to help each other. They really, really do. So just think about it. If somebody, came to you and said, "I'd really love your idea on blank, blank, and blank. Can we spend 10 minutes together?" That is the greatest feeling in the entire world. Someone is recognizing you and for your expertise. And so, just as my friend got me on the American Funds board, I am always, hopefully always, and this is the thing you've got to, you can't rest on your laurels, right? But I am always working hard to find opportunities for other women, especially around me. And, if you email me, if you friend me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, and you ask for help or advice or whatever, I will do my very best to do that for you, because so many people did for me. And so the only thing that I ask of those people that I help are, you need to commit to me that you're going to do that for others. And people, it's one of the things that I am getting a lot better at, but it's really important that you're helping people who don't just look like you. And, so it's everyone, right? It's really helping to make sure that you are providing advice and counsel and opportunities and feedback and friendship, honestly, and mentorship and sponsorship for those around you. That's how I got my job at Estée Lauder. The woman who had my role before me, Sally Sussman, who just helped herald in the Pfizer vaccine for COVID, had my job, and we were friends. And I said to her at lunch one day, you really have the world's most perfect job. And if you ever think about changing, I'd be so grateful if you thought of me. And a year later, she called me and said, "I'm going to Pfizer and someone from HR is going to call you tomorrow."
Wow.
So
that's real nice. So Shizwan, would you like to go with the next question, the last one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for sharing And my question is, you also write, appreciating and understanding an organization's culture has advanced my career, but almost once derailed it. Would you tell us more about the derailed part?
Oh, sure. It's fresh in my mind 13 years later. So my first year at Estée Lauder was the hardest year of my life. Harder than being a brand new mother, harder than, lots of other things. And it was hard because it was the company was going through transition. We brought in a fabulous new CEO, Fabrizio Freda. So I joined a month after he did. And even though I spent a tremendous amount of time with the Lauder family in the interview process, I technically did not report to Leonard Lauder. And Leonard Lauder, and by the way, he's got a book coming out. You can buy it on Amazon. It's coming out next week, and he's going to be on CBS Sunday Morning this Sunday. And he is a genius, and he is an incredible, incredible person. But technically, I came from banking, right? So an org chart is really something important and serious. And on my org chart, I reported to William Lauder, his son, who had just been made executive chairman, and to Fabrizio Freda. And so I just didn't pay any attention to that basically 5 months that I spent with Leonard as, he was determining whether or not I was the right person for this role. And I got myself into a lot of mud puddles. I really made a lot of mistakes. And those mistakes, I think, not all of them, but a lot of them could have been averted and avoided if I had said to Leonard on the first day, or even before I started, if I had asked 3 questions. One is, what do you need from me? What does it look like? Do you want me to call you? Do you want me to email you? Do you want me to come find you? And what kinds of things are keeping you up at night? What are the things that you want me to make sure that I'm connecting with you on? And that's really personal, right? I have my personal quirks. Every single one of us does. And so I didn't do that, have that very, very, very important conversation right up front. And so my onboarding at the company was difficult because I would make, now they are such, stupid mistakes. I'd agree to do something and I wouldn't step back and think, I wonder what Leonard thinks about this. I wonder how he's done this in the past, and I can learn from that. So, it's a mistake I would never make again. When people ask me that, who work with me, I'm so, so grateful because it really shows that they really care. And that they know that there is a job description with things that we need to deliver, but then there's the how we do things. And in a family company that's about to have its 75th anniversary and being the leader in global prestige beauty, we need to be really ensuring that we're asking the soft questions too. And actually the soft questions are the hard questions.
I think those are real good.
Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you.
So first, I would like to thank my colleagues, Julia, who is hosting us, and Ria, who has been keeping up with all these questions. And the students made a short video for you. It's just a few seconds.
Oh, great!
So maybe
thanks.
So you will be able to see our faces.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. Oh, you guys,
Thank you for giving us information about.
Hello, Mrs. Alexandra Trower. On behalf of our Finance for Marketing Decisions class, we would like to thank you for
Thank you for giving us information about communication within the financial services and the cosmetics industry.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us about your role in corporate communications and your experience as a businesswoman and a leader.
I'm thankful to learn about the shifts in digital and social communications in the past, present, and future.
Thank you for sharing with us young professionals the value of pursuing leadership and giving back to our communities.
I'm thankful to learn effective ways companies can build and maintain trust with consumers in the digital space.
Thank you so much for taking your time and coming to talk to us about your career insights and successes in the communication field.
For taking the time to help us understand what qualities are most important to possess in order to be an effective leader in the industry.
Yeah, so look, on behalf of all of us, we want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you. Thank you to you.
And we hope
I
you
so
have
enjoyed.
another chance.
Well, I thank you so much for this opportunity, and please feel free to connect with me. I'd love to connect with you and be helpful in any way, and just keep up the great work. I know it's got to be super hard to be going to school and doing all that you're doing in the middle of this crazy pandemic. And thank you again, George, for thinking of me and inviting me today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take good care, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye.